Good morning, President Taylor, Board of Trustees, faculty, parents, family, friends, the community of Galesburg, the class of 1955, which I understand was out partying last night and yet still showed up here on time, and most of all, the class of 2005. Congratulations on your graduation, and thank you. Thank you for the honor of allowing me to be a part of it. Thank you also, Mr. President, for this honorary degree. It was only a couple of years ago that I stopped paying my student loans at law school. Had I known it was this easy, I would have ran for the United States Senate earlier. You know, it has been about 6 months now since you sent me to Washington as your United States Senator. I recognize that not all of you voted for me, so for those of you muttering under your breath, I didn't send you anywhere. That's okay too. Maybe we'll hold, what do you call it? A little pump handle after the ceremony. Change your mind for the next time. You know, it has been a fascinating journey thus far. Each time I walk onto the Senate floor, I'm reminded of the history, for good and for ill, that's been made there. But there have been a few surreal moments. For example, I remember the day before I was sworn in. Myself and my staff, we decided to hold a press conference in our office. Now, keep in mind that I am ranked 99th in seniority. I was proud that I was not ranked dead last until I found out it's just because Illinois is bigger than Colorado. So I'm 99th in seniority, and all the reporters are crammed into the tiny transition office that I have, which is right next to the janitor's closet in the basement of the Dirksen office building. It's my first day in the building. I have not taken a single vote. I have not introduced one bill, had not even sat down in my desk, and this very earnest reporter raised his hand and says, "Senator Obama, what is your place in history?" And I did what you just did, which was laugh out loud. I said, "Place in history?" I thought he was kidding. You know, at that point, I wasn't even sure if the other senators would save a place for me at the cool kids table. But as I was thinking about the words to share with this class, about what's next, about what's possible, and what opportunities lay ahead, I actually think it's not a bad question for you, the class of 2005, to ask yourselves. What will be your place in history? You know, in other eras, across distant lands, this question could be answered with relative ease and certainty. As a servant in Rome, you knew you'd spend your life forced to build somebody else's empire. As a peasant in 11th century China, you knew that no matter how hard you worked, the local warlord might come and take everything you had. And you also knew that famine might come knocking at the door. As a subject of King George, you knew that your freedom of worship and your freedom to speak and to build your own life would be ultimately limited by the throne. And then America happened. A place where destiny was not a destination, but a journey to be shared and shaped and remade by people who had the gall, the temerity, to believe that against all odds they could form a more perfect union on this new frontier. And as people around the world began to hear the tale of the lowly colonists who overthrew an empire for the sake of an idea, they started to come. Across oceans and the ages, they settled in Boston and Charleston, Chicago and St. Louis, Kalamazoo and Galesburg to try and build their own American dream. This collective dream moved forward imperfectly. It was scarred by our treatment of native peoples, betrayed by slavery, clouded by the subjugation of women, shaken by war and depression. And yet, brick by brick, rail by rail, calloused hand by calloused hand, people kept dreaming and building and working and marching and petitioning their government until they made America a land where the question of our place in history is not answered for us, it's answered by us. Have we failed at times? Absolutely. Will you occasionally fail when you embark on your own American journey? You surely will. But the test is not perfection. The true test of the American ideal is whether we're able to recognize our failings and then rise together to meet the challenges of our time. Whether we allow ourselves to be shaped by events in history or whether we act to shape them. Whether chance of birth or circumstance decides life's big winners and losers, or whether we build a community where, at the very least, everyone has a chance to work hard, get ahead, and reach their dreams. Now, we have faced this choice before. At the end of the Civil War, when farmers and their families began moving into the cities to work in the big factories that were sprouting up all across America, we had to decide, do we do nothing and allow captains of industry and robber barons to run roughshod over the economy and workers by competing to see who can pay the lowest wages at the worst working conditions? Or do we try to make the system work by setting up basic rules for the market, instituting the first public schools, busting up monopolies, letting workers organize into unions? We chose to act, and we rose together. When the irrational exuberance of the Roaring '20s came crashing down with the stock market, we had to decide, do we follow the call of leaders who would do nothing, or the call of a leader who, perhaps because of his physical paralysis, refused to accept political paralysis? We chose to act, regulating the market, putting people back to work, expanding bargaining rights to include health care and a secure retirement, and together we rose. When World War II required the most massive hope front mobilization in history, and we needed every single American to lend a hand, we had to decide, do we listen to skeptics who told us it wasn't possible to produce that many tanks or planes, or did we build Roosevelt's arsenal for democracy and grow our economy even further by providing our returning heroes with a chance to go to college and own their own home? Again, we chose to act. And again, we rose together. Today, at the beginning of this young century, we have to decide again. But this time, it is your turn to choose. Here in Galesburg, you know what this new challenge is. You've seen it. All of you, your first year in college, saw what happened at 9/11. It's already been noted the degree to which your lives will be intertwined with the war on terrorism that currently is taking place. But what you've also seen, perhaps not as spectacularly, is the fact that when you drive by the old Maytag plant around lunchtime, no one walks out anymore. I saw it during the campaign when I met union guys who worked at the plant for 20, 30 years and now wonder what they're going to do at the age of 55 without a pension or health care. When I met the man whose son needed a new liver, but because he'd been laid off, didn't know if he could afford to provide his child the care that he needed. It's as if someone changed the rules in the middle of the game, and no one bothered to tell these folks. And in reality, the rules have changed. It started with technology.